let's start with some Cowboys. Of course, the news of the offseason everyone's talking about, the pay increase for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Is that one? Yeah. Okay.
Wait. They have a pay increase?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Oh.
They do have a pay increase. It is a small story that I don't think anyone really cares about because, as you're going to see, I believe this is a raise from $15 to $70 an hour.
That's not what the headline said.
It is not, and that's what I want to talk about.
Oh, sorry.
So, of course, there was the America's Sweethearts Netflix show that, I don't know, was it directly lifted from Sarah Heppela's podcast, or was it just like used as research? Like when they started that Netflix show, it seems like that was on the heels of Sarah's podcast, and like, you know, they had the TV show on CMT for a long time, and I didn't know there was a new season, but there's a second season, and in the 7th episode last night, you have to pull me up here now, Blake, I don't know, there was a little conversation that made news.
I was not at uniform returns. I was home. I really didn't know if I was going to come back at that point. But with the new changes, I do plan on returning for a 5th season. On Tuesday, I heard from Kelly that she wanted to kind of reconvene, have another conversation about our pay.
Myself, Armani, and Megan, we got an email. They asked if they could meet with us, and they basically just, thanked us for everything that we told them and for being very open and honest.
Our efforts were heard, and they wanted to give us a raise, and we ended up getting a 400% increase, which is like life-changing.
Happy isn't even the right word for it.
Okay. So that's what is in the final episode of the 2nd season of the Netflix show. That gets aggregated to these headlines. That's how I found out about this, was a tweet. So there's a New York Times story about it. Because that is the only thing that was said. We got a 400% payment increase. And we've heard for years, there was that lawsuit back in 2019 where a former cheerleader had sued saying, they're not paid enough. Everybody knows that they're deriving a lot of their quote-unquote compensation from exposure, that they don't get paid that much hourly. It was $15 an hour, and then there was some number for games that was not very high. So the only thing that really has been confirmed, the New York Times called a cheerleader who I believe is current, that they're going from $15 an hour to $75 an hour, which is a 400% increase, but I'm not sure it's life-changing unless you plan to work. You know what I mean? Like they're not working hourly enough to where that's not life-changing. And that's also not typically how you would say.
You didn't go from 20,000 to 200. Well, whatever. Yeah.
It's a big percent, but there's no more details about it.
I guess that's what we'd have to know is how much do they make in a year off just cheerleading.
Yeah, and so the New York Times called this cheerleader. They're the only ones who has any original reporting on this. She said that she was making $15 an hour and $500 for each appearance. I don't know how that works. She said now she would be making more than $75 an hour. But I don't know how that works with, whatever. But I just thought it was an interesting media story that they're talking to this girl on a reality show, and she's like straightening her clothing with a steamer, and she's like, I got a 400% increase. And then there's just news stories about it. And nobody really knows. The Cowboys, for their part, declined to comment. Would not confirm any details regarding the wages.
Yeah, that would indicate that it's not as great as
and
the headline. Like, let's just leave it at the headline.
Yes, and I also I have not watched this show. I was interested in the first season, but as I was skipping through looking for this audio today, there's no way I can do it. I'm glad it's there. It's an interesting topic. I can't watch it. It's too aggravating for me. But they're highlighting heavily how much cool stuff they get to do by being on the show or by being on the staff on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I searched it on Twitter, and that's like a common review. Is it after the first season when everybody was like, damn, they work really hard, they don't really get paid that much. That was the narrative. The second season is really a lot of showing like, but look at all this cool stuff they get to do because they're cowboy cheerleaders. You know,
So
you
I
may have
think-
forgot this is a pretty sweet gig.
So this is
That
like a
sort of-
Charlotte deal, right?
Yeah.
And she's probably got final say on how it actually comes out. Like Jerry is the executive producer of his Netflix documentary. So
Oh, yeah,
you're
it's
not
a
going to
message.
get the
Sure.
stripper in Vegas or the picture in Vegas with drunk Jerry, right? On that, you're going to get all the other stuff. So you're right. That's a great analysis. They watched season 1. Everybody's complaining about what they get paid and how hard they work. Because Charlotte's mind was probably, hey, let's highlight how hard they work so they get some appreciation.
Yeah. And
And then everybody's like, yeah, but why aren't you giving them that appreciation? Well, now let's highlight all the cool places that we do take them, so now we can get some appreciation.
yeah, and
Yeah.
when this dancer athlete says I got a 400% increase, just leave it at
Highlight,
that.
yeah, let's just put
leave it
that
at
in there.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is Blake got a bigger raise than Dak Prescott.
Yeah,
That's actually true. By this.
yeah.
Matt,
yeah,
so-
this is pretty common to radio.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're making nothing, but you think to yourself, well, I get to go to training camp and
Yeah.
have a cool
lot of jobs like
job
that.
and-
So that was my Cowboys story for the day, Dan.
The
That's
thing
right.
that jumped out to me about that story is that the Cowboys were paying the cheerleaders less than Blake pays Angelo before this raise.